All right, so I think we're live. So you're officially my first interview I've ever done on this channel, so I appreciate that.
Let's go. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. You maybe just want to give a quick intro about yourself. I obviously titled it with your name and the fact that we played rugby together, but I thought maybe you could give a little, just a quick background on who you are.
Yeah. Paul Mullen. I am from the Aran Islands in Ireland. Um, at the young age of 19, came to America, went to Texas A&M Galveston, and started playing rugby for Galveston Rugby Club. And lo and behold, while I was there, I met the one and only Nick Bowles. And since the Galveston days, I ended up playing with Houston SaberCats. Now I'm in Utah, playing for the Utah Warriors, and playing with the U.S. national team. So
Very cool.
that's me in a nutshell.
Yeah, so I thought we'd kind of quickly just go over like our time in Galveston. I thought we'd start there and then we can Tarantino it. And I'm kind of interested to hear like about your time coming up in Ireland and then kind of like where you are now.
Yeah,
Uh,
yeah, let's go.
but I think so. I think I had either just graduated or was about to graduate when I started playing for Galveston. I tried it out my freshman year, and I just didn't have the time for it, so I came back and that's essentially where I met you as a youngster. You were freshman, sophomore, I think. And I had never played the game really before. Like my uncle had always tried to get me to play. You know him as well.
Yeah,
And so I kind of had some free time after college, and I go out there, and it's just absolute chaos. It's fun, but it's chaos. And yeah, you played 8 man and I played flank, and we played together a lot, which was a lot of fun. I had a lot of fun running behind you. But yeah, we kind of that's where I kind of met you, and I think rugby's just it's an incredible sport. It's as much a social sport as it is a physical sport on the field. And yeah, I just absolutely fell in love with it, and it was obviously a blast playing with you. You were obviously a talent, as we've seen now, and you've gone on. And uh, I don't know, just thought, what was your thoughts about Galveston or your experience there?
um, yeah. Geez, I think I spent seven years playing with Galveston. And looking back, at just great memories. A lot of fun, and ultimately, uh, I'll never forget the first day I showed up to a Galveston rugby game. And the coach Moose at the time goes, "Oh, I get a little bit of perspective." So I was playing in Ireland, so I played Munster under 18, 19, 20, and then played Ireland under 19, and I was like, okay, I just came fresh off the boat, landing Galveston, and I was like, and I've only ever played prop, like that's all I've ever played at this stage, and yeah, landing Galveston, and Moose comes out, goes, the coach, and he's like, "Oh, I believe you're in U10, right?" I was like, "Geez, man, I know what you're talking about." It's like, I've never played 10 in my life, all I know is prop, and I was like, okay, I was like, I didn't really know what to make of that. But after a while, it's just I kind of realized it's like because I'm back in Ireland, everything was like, I mean, even though it was underage, like it was basically professional.
Yeah,
It was just everything was run so sharp. The only thing is you weren't getting paid for it, and that'd be my thinking. The only difference of being professional. It's just it was so sharp, and so then all of a sudden, you're kind of chucked into Galveston. It's like, okay, this is different, but I guess in hindsight now, it was like probably the best thing that could have happened because I was like going from a borderline, a very serious environment with the stuff back home, and now we're in a very serious environment. So like if I went from a serious environment to a serious environment to another serious environment, it's like you know I don't know if I'd still be here. But the fact that I had so much fun with Galveston in the middle is just kind of like you know now I just it's I could say I've had my fun, and I don't get me wrong, I still have fun here, but it's just it was a good time.
yeah, absolutely. How'd you hear about Galveston, or what brought you to A&M Galveston specifically?
Yeah, I mean, ultimately, it was, I wanted to do marine engineering, and my parents weren't really too thrilled on me playing rugby, so they're like, listen, we can't really keep this fella around here, although he's going to play rugby. So I guess I went to Galveston, which is probably the farthest thing from rugby you can find.
Yeah.
Uh,
And so
so
maybe like a little back. So Galveston, for those who don't know or are listening outside of Texas, right? Galveston's a little island at the south of Houston, and the only talent we can really pull from is the college and then any locals. And so I always joke about Galveston. It was a lot of young guys with the athleticism and energy, but they don't know how to play versus, a lot of older guys who may know the game a lot better, but they can't really play that good, right? And so
yeah, exactly. Yeah,
there's a
yeah, yeah.
weird mix there in Galveston. Whereas if you just go up the road to Bay Area and they were like a Division 2, Galveston was Division 3 at the time, which is the lowest division in Texas. It's a much Division 3 to Division 2 is a huge step, right? And it's just totally different. And again, the Bay Area is a little north of us. They pull from all of South Houston. Galveston's just a little island, like we just get whatever Galveston has to offer, right? So someone like you coming to Galveston is, I mean, they've probably never seen anything like that, right? That amount of like someone who actually grew up in a professional rugby atmosphere and was also knowledgeable but also very physical, right? With the way you played and how good you were. It
Yeah, well, I'd say the other side of it too, though, is like I was just a prop. Like, so all I knew was just a prop, and
yeah,
like, prop isn't a very position. The prop isn't a very um,
you're a big ugly essentially,
fancy.
yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So it's like and so they're going to Galveston. It's like fantastic. I got to play number 8. I mean, this was an absolute joy.
Yeah.
Got to carry the ball a bit. It's something that doesn't really happen that often anymore. Um, but I guess from that aspect, I got to learn a lot too. Just from more outside of the other than just being a prop. So it was definitely beneficial for me too.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, so that was kind of our time and we had a good little run there, I think, for what Galveston was at the time, right? I think we made the playoffs a couple times, which for Galveston's pretty rare. So that was a lot of fun, and obviously being in college, we are two college kids, like you said, it was a lot of fun, good mix of guys. So that's kind of your time from like Ireland to Galveston, and about the time that I left, that was probably like 2012 or 13, something like that, when I kind of stopped playing. The Major League Rugby came around, and obviously, if you want to tell us like how the tryouts worked for that, or what is it like being trying out for like an entirely new league in the USA? That must have been pretty fun.
Yeah. So I'd say you might have stayed on a bit longer because the Major League Rugby started in 2018.
Okay, so
So
yeah, okay,
anyway, but regardless, um, I remember. So the Houston coach at the time was Justin Fitzpatrick, and he came down to. They're doing some like a talk or something. It was at like Bay Area we're having it. So I went up there, and that was actually at a time where I got suspended for, was it like 5 weeks or something like that, or was it something silly, for getting too many yellow cards for either back chat the referees or something. So I mean, listen, and I'm guilty. Like I was definitely at fault for at least 50% of it. But
right.
so to get off that ban, I had to referee. I think was it 3 games or something like that, or 3 tournaments. Go to 3 different sevens tournaments. So became a certified referee, referee 3 tournaments, and only for that. That's what made me like remove that ban, and then I could I suppose be eligible to play for the Sabercats and stuff. And that was always the goal. So I think we played the Arrows in January, sometime in January, and then the following weekend I was playing with the Sabercats, and I was just kind of there was no like tryouts or anything. It was just Fitzy, the coach, was like, "Hey, listen, would like to have you on board." And I was like, "Listen, I can't really commit until I finish my thesis here at the time." And once I finished the thesis, I was like, "Hey, listen, I'm ready to go. If you're still interested in me." So I started training with them. And if I wasn't playing with the Sabercats, and I think I'd play with Galveston. As I said, we played the Arrows one weekend. The following weekend, then I was playing with the Sabercats. So yeah, it was just a fantastic experience to, you know, I mean, that's all, as a kid, that's all you want to do, right? Is just kind of play at the highest level possible, and if that's Galveston, well, that's Galveston. If it's the next level, if it's D2, D3, whatever, if it's the Sabercats, and then afterwards, then you go to USA, and ultimately, that's any kid's dream.
Right. And so yeah, so the MLR, Major League Rugby, kind of starts up. You start with the Houston Sabercats, and then I know you ended up on the Eagles, which is our national team, which is a big deal in the rugby world for us here. That's pretty remarkable in my opinion. Definitely very cool. And you're now with Utah. So, what was it like playing for the Eagles? Because to me, that is like you just said, that's the dream. That's the pinnacle of rugby in the U.S. at least, right? And rugby's obviously been growing and whatnot, but playing for the Eagles like that's a pretty to me like that's pretty remarkable, right? What was that like playing on an international kind of stage?
Yeah, I mean, Nick, I'm not gonna lie. One of my favorite games ever was playing for the Eagles. It was my second game ever for the Eagles. So we played. The first game was Russia and Denver. The second game was Scotland and Houston. And it was just like, at this stage, Houston, Galveston, that this kind of area has pretty much become my second home. It's been probably, it's been there the best part of close to, 8 years at that stage. It was 8 years. So it's just like, that was home, and I knew a lot of people there. So to be able to play for the U.S. national team in my, you could say, adopted home was just a dream come true, And then to beat Scotland in, the melting heat of, it was BBVA Compass Stadium. I think it's a Shell Field now or something, Shell
Yeah, yeah,
Stadium. I
yeah.
don't know. Was just man, it was the icing on the cake, and it was just to this day is one of my favorite memories of ever um, playing rugby.
What's the international play like? It's got to be just insanely fast and physical.
Yeah, you nailed it. Yeah, it's fast. It's so fast. Yeah, so fast, so physical, and ultimately, when we're playing with Galveston, you make a mistake, nothing might come of that. As in they won't score. You make a mistake at the international level, yeah, they're capitalizing, and it's being able, yeah, that's my fault. So
Yeah.
hopefully that doesn't happen too often, or hopefully it won't happen too often in the future. But ultimately, it's just very what's the word I'm looking for? Tight, I
Humbling.
guess. Well, yeah, just as in, you can't make a mistake. If you
Yeah.
make a
Oh, you got to
mistake,
be you got to be
yeah,
on
you
the
got to be
ball, right?
on. Yeah.
And so when was your last international game or Eagles game?
Last Eagles game was against the country of Georgia last year. So it's basically, I mean, I don't know if you know where that is, but it's out there close to Russia.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And so that was last year. And what was the transition? You played on the SaberCats, right? And now you're on Utah. Is that how the transition went?
Yeah, so I played 2 years. So 2018. So I started 2018. Played 2 years with the SaberCats. Then went to the World Cup in Japan. Came back after that. I went to San Diego. I was only in San Diego for like 5 weeks when COVID came in, or COVID put an end to the season. Then I went home, and since then I've been. This is my fourth year in Utah. So 2021 was the first season here in Utah. Does that make sense? Yeah, I came here at the end of 2020, and I've been here. This is my fourth year.
Yeah. How is the so after COVID? How did that work? Do people still have contracts, or was there like a big free agency pool, or was there a lot of moving pieces? I guess guys went all over the place.
Well, I mean, ultimately, nobody knew. I mean, it's like the whole world. Nobody knew what was happening. So, but fortunately, I mean, the MLR owners, like, I mean, they were like fair play to them. I mean, to why I guess they didn't have to, but they did. But they paid out all the players. So whatever your contract was for the year, even though played, you've been there for 5 weeks, maybe 8 weeks. I think it was 5 games total. You got paid out your whole contract. So at least from that aspect, you weren't kind of high and dry, if you will. Um, but yeah, then afterwards, I mean, they still had your right. Well, whether you're tied into a contract, that still existed.
Yeah. That's crazy. So what was it like signing your first contract for money or with Houston, right? That's got to be pretty good feeling.
Yeah, yeah, it's funny actually. There's been one of my first contract in Houston was, um, it's actually been mad. I actually wasn't getting paid because I was on a student visa.
Interesting.
Yeah, so my first actual time getting paid was with USA, or even, yeah, USA. So
The Eagles?
yeah, and it was just yeah. I mean, it's just, man, it's crazy, right? Because at least to play for something like that, it's a dream you've been chasing for so long. It's like, man, I just want to play for them,
Yeah.
and like getting paid is like a byproduct. It's like you know, it's like I don't, well, I care about this obviously, but I don't really care about the money. I just want to play for this team. I want to represent this country, you know?
Yeah. I remember that was kind of my same thought with Galveston was like after I played a year or two, I was like, man, maybe I should go try Bay Area a little bit. And then I was like, no, I just want to play. Like, I just want to play. I know if I stay in Galveston, I'll play,
Yeah.
all the minutes. So I just decided to stay in Galveston for that exact reason. But, yeah, so you're now with Utah and, um, you're playing prop, I assume?
Oh yeah. That's all I've been playing. In EMLR, that's all I've been playing. That's all I probably will ever play
Yeah.
is prop. So yeah,
Did you
played it.
enjoy playing 8 man in Galveston more than prop?
Oh yeah, it's fantastic.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
You get the ball all the time. Yeah.
I mean, as you said, kind of what you touched off it earlier. It's like you have some of the older guys that know the game. You have some of the younger guys that don't know the game that are incredibly athletic, and then so if you're kind of in between where you know the game and you're somewhat athletic, it's kind of ideal, But
Yeah, yeah.
yeah,
That
definitely a lot of fun,
that's how I felt.
Scored some tries. I hadn't even scored a try in the MLR, and I've been in it. Well, I don't know how many years since 2018. So you do the math
You
there,
haven't scored one
So,
try yet? Not for Houston or Utah?
no, no, I scored in a friendly, but that doesn't count, does it?
Yeah. Damn. All right. We're gonna have to. You have to let me know when you get your first try. I'll make a little
Yeah.
highlight reel for you. Are you so on the Eagles, right? What was your playing time like? Like, were you a starter on the Eagles or reserve?
Yeah, I mean it's a bit of both.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would say a bit of both, probably 50-50.
That's so cool, dude. I think that's just like that's really awesome.
Yeah, yeah. I'm guessing 50-50 if I'm,
Yeah, just a rough estimate.
yeah, yeah,
So how is I honestly don't follow MLR too closely. Like I keep tabs on it and
yeah.
whatnot.
Well,
Um,
Nick, get it together, man.
I
Come
know
on.
I'm trying. Here we are. I'm trying to get more in the game. I talked to Nutsack also, and he's doing this whole Instagram thing. I was telling him we should link up for a couple interviews or something and see where that goes.
Absolutely, yeah. He's got the refined ruggers, I got my hat right there. Actually, I should have it
Yeah,
on.
that's
But I mean, to what he done, it's fantastic. He's a guy a bit like yourself, loves rugby, but then what he found was in corporate America, there isn't too many rugby T-shirts that you could wear because some of them might have some, I wouldn't say profanity, but some sort of that isn't professional on them. So he started his company, Refined Ruggers. So now it's like you got a polo that's got like a nice rugby crest on it. It's like,
yeah,
hey, this is suitable for the professional or corporate America. So it's honestly, I think it's a fantastic idea.
that is very cool. So what's since your time in the MLR, what's the best your team has placed? How does the season work? How does the playoffs work? Maybe you could explain that a little bit.
Yeah, so you have the Western Conference and Eastern Conference, and you play. So this year you play every team in your conference. So here in Utah and in Houston, Houston's Western Conference. So we play everybody home and away, and then you might play you play some of the other teams, the Eastern Conference. So you might play them once. So you might play them either at home or away. Uh, so yeah, and then basically whoever has the highest points are the top few go on to playoffs. So the highest we done was in 2021. We went to the semifinal.
And
Yeah. So
how many teams in the MLR in terms of when it started and now? How many teams have been added since it started, or is it still the same?
no, I'm guessing was it 12 when it started? I can't remember. You got me there.
That's okay.
Uh, but we've had a few teams. A few teams have come in and a few teams have folded since. So year one, obviously Austin was around the year one. They folded in the last couple of years. Toronto were also in. They've gone down. New York. So it's Atlanta have kind of sold or relocated. So yeah, it's LA. I guess LA were there. They're gone. Whatever. So it's I guess you could say the league is a bit of a startup. So there's a lot of moving parts. Is that the word? Or
Yeah, there's gonna be a
growing
lot of
pains.
fluctuation. Yeah.
There you go.
Do you
Yeah.
think it's moving in the right direction overall?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. I mean, ultimately, like, I think that the biggest thing, if you are a rugby fan or if you're not a rugby fan, now is probably the best time to become a rugby fan in America because in 2031, we have the Rugby World Cup here on home soil. So it's like if you're just becoming a rugby fan, it's like it's only going to get it's only going to get better from here. So it's and it's going to be exciting. So I think it's a very exciting time in the landscape, if you will.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, that's good to hear. I mean, obviously, I felt like I kind of got into rugby. My family was kind of always into it, so I knew of it. But I felt like I kind of gotten in just before the MLR, and like as you're saying, it's kind of expanding. So I am glad I got in when I did. I felt like it was a good time to get in. But man, yeah, that's really good to hear. I mean, you're a little younger than me, but you're getting up there in age a little bit. What's like the average age here? I also bring this up because I saw that Houston had, what was it, the youngest MLR player ever? He was like 17 or something.
18, yeah, 18, yeah. He actually came on. He got capped that day when we played him. Was it the first? I think it was the first game of the season. Yeah.
Yeah. What's kind of the peak age here? Obviously, rugby's a young man's game for sure. So
Yeah. Although, so I'd almost say something like So what am I? I'm 32 now. Uh, and it's like for the front row or for props especially, it's there's a lot of learning to take on board. Like in terms of technique, I feel with scrums. So like you can be super strong and stuff, but it's scrummaging is an interesting kind of a thing. So it's ultimately, I mean, like you know, I'd love to go for another couple of years if I'm honest. So
yeah,
if that gives you an idea of how far I can go, but yeah, kind of, we'll see. We'll take every year or take every kind of game as I can. Just keep on trucking until until the body says, "Hey, listen, Paul, what are you doing?"
yeah.
But for now, listen, I'm still having fun, still enjoying it. So as long as that's the case, I'll keep on trucking.
100%, yeah. And how are you feeling about Utah this year? How's your team, or what do you think your projections are?
Yeah, obviously we're 1-3 right now, so we got off to a bit of a slow start, a rough start. A lot of new players this year, so we're trying to get that uh, connection maybe, and yeah, so it's it's coming around. How about that? It's
Yeah,
just yeah. So we're playing Anthem, which is the Charlotte team this weekend at home. So and here's the thing: playing in Utah, it's like the Utah fans they're incredible. And so we play up here at it's what 4,750 feet elevation, so it's quite high. So it's like when you come up here, you definitely feel that. And so we like to think that when we're training at this elevation, that it's only good.
yeah, absolutely. I would think.
Or it's to our advantage, if you will.
Yeah, I would think so too. That's interesting. I guess you've noticed a difference when you got to Utah. Did you notice
Oh,
like?
Nick, it's night and day, man.
Yeah.
It's night and day. Yeah.
I'm
Like you
already I'm
just
already breathing heavy just thinking about it.
Yeah, yeah. It's a different pain. It's like deep in the lungs. You're just like you're gasping for it. Like where is this?
Yeah.
But ultimately, it's up to us to use that to our advantage. So hopefully, sometimes teams come up and they try and slow the game down because they want it to be very stop start so they can take their breath. But we got to try and enforce our what we want to do.
Exactly. Impose your will.
But yeah, there you go. I knew you had a tattoo or something like that, but I
Yeah,
couldn't
yeah,
remember the
yeah.
words of it.
Exactly, man. You gotta
Yeah.
live by it, right? Oh
Yeah.
man, but yeah, I mean, let's see. We've been going about. It's been like 25 minutes. I mean, obviously, I could sit here and talk rugby with you all day. Is there anything particular you want to say, or any kind of marketing or pitch you want to give to people about rugby, or any stories you want to share?
Jeez, I mean, I don't know where it's you
No,
probably left
not
a
the
bit
story
broad for me
about
there.
us in Baton Rouge. We're not gonna tell that
Yeah,
story, but
that was a good time.
that was a
Yeah,
great time. That's actually why I wore this. I brought it up.
yeah,
Yeah, the Lone Star Mercenaries. That was a very fun
yeah.
trip.
Went on tour to Baton Rouge. That was a good time. Yeah, I mean, listen, it's I think one of the things with rugby, and I'm sure you found it yourself, is like once you kind of like, here's what I find, and I suppose I almost forgot about it for a while. It was like I was in Ireland. I come to Texas. I don't know anybody in Texas. And I remember before I left Ireland, as one of my teammates with was in 20s, and we're in the car, and he goes, so Paul, you going to Texas? And I was like, yeah. And he goes, do you know anybody over there? I was like, no, I have an uncle in Boston though. And he goes, you do realize like Boston and Texas is the same as like Ireland and like Spain. It's like a complete different country. It's so far
Yeah.
away. And I was like, never really thought of it like that, but thanks, So basically, also ultimately, I landed in Texas and didn't know anybody. Found Galveston rugby, and like just like that, you play a few games together straight away. Like there's this connection. So what I find with rugby is that no matter where you go in the world, if you find a rugby team, you have you have friends there, somebody that's going to take you in or show you around, and that's what I found with Galveston. And to this day, I'm so just grateful for the time I've had in Galveston, and I still love the place.
Absolutely,
Um,
100%. I kind of, obviously, like, I'm a big basketball fan. I talk about basketball a lot on this channel, but there is a difference, right, when you are on a team and the penalty for making a mistake on basketball might be that the other team scores a basket or something, or you turn the ball over, right? If you make a mistake in rugby, your teammate might get his dick knocked in the dirt, right? There's a little bit of a different like camaraderie there and a little bit
yeah,
of a trust factor, right? And truly having someone's back and things like that. That does raise the ante a little bit, I found, but it makes it that much more I don't know if intimate's the right word, but it makes the bond kind of that much more special. And the other thing I quickly learned about rugby is how much of a social game it is, right? It's, the home team has to prepare the bar for the visiting team, and you go out, you show them a good time, all this kind of stuff. Like it really is as much about social outside the game and having fun, and again friends, people helping you out or whatever, your little clique of your team or whatever, kind of friends for life thing. And that's something that really kind of blew me away. Like if it was just the game, right, and then everyone was just like, later, bye, I'll see you at the next one, I'm not sure I would have stuck around as much. It's such a physically demanding and punishing sport that have being part of this, like, really a team, a cohesive unit that's kind of sacrificing injuries and blood out there for each other, right? It's a whole nother thing I'd never experienced with basketball, and I have to give it up to rugby in that it is the funnest game when you take in the outside of the game itself on the field. It's by far the best sport in the world. I don't care what anybody says. There's just nothing like it, dude. It's like if you can imagine you and your buddies just roaming downtown and just owning it and just talking shit and having fun. Like that is what rugby was like to me 24/7. I loved every second of it, right? So
yeah.
that's my take on it.
Yeah, I think that's it. It's kind of like I'm out there, and if you're on the opposite team, I mean, even though we're friends, like I'm still gonna try and run you over. I'm still gonna I'm still gonna
100%, yeah.
do whatever I can to win. But whatever, once that final whistle goes, you go to the bar. Yeah, we'll have a beer. We'll catch up, and it's like I think that's the beauty of it because both teams are just giving it absolutely everything. And then once that whistle's over, it's like, all right, it's a game. Now let's catch up. Let's kind of shoot the shit, and hey, see you next time. But it's a great kind of a challenge and kind of a yeah. No, yeah, it's hard to beat, isn't it?
And it's a big international community too, right? It seems like every team, even Division Three's got some guy like you from Ireland or a guy from South Africa or whatever. It's always like, to me it was always cool. Like there's always one guy on every team who's like, yeah, I played rugby over in Japan and then I moved to the States 10 years
Yeah,
ago, and I found this team, right? And then you play him and you run into him. I
yeah,
always thought that was pretty cool too. It's a very tight knit community, but it is global in a way.
yeah. But absolutely. I mean, like, what do I have, or what did I have in common with anybody on the Galveston rugby team prior to coming over? Like nothing. Like absolutely nothing. And all of a
Yeah,
sudden we've rugby in common, and before you know it, it's like this guy. Now we're part of the family. And the same thing goes for anybody that would be going the other way. If you're in America, you play rugby, and you're heading overseas. You find a rugby team, and all of a sudden, here's your adopted family. Like, just I don't know how it happens, but just that's kind of the way it works. And it's for that aspect alone, it's awesome.
yeah. There's really nothing like it. I mean, I do truly mean that. There's really nothing like rugby when you take into account the off the field aspect of it.
Yeah.
So yeah, what are your hopes? I guess maybe after rugby. Do you have any thoughts or ideas about that? Too far away?
I'd like to think it's too far away. I
Yeah.
mean, it might be just around the corner, but hopefully it's too far away. What would I like to do? I'd love to stay involved in rugby in some way, shape, or form, and just help grow the game in America. Um, Whether it's coaching or through the, kind of rugby camps or something. Just because, you said it, you think it's the best game in the world. I'm on the same, couldn't agree more with you. And I just think, it's just so good. I'd love to just get it out there. America is the biggest, most kind of dominant sports country in the world. And it's like rugby is only like kind of barely breaking the surface. So I'd love to be able to help with that somehow. But yeah, if I'm honest, Nick, I couldn't tell you.
Yeah. Do they have American football at all in rugby when you before you left? Was that a thing at all? I know it's semi growing in Europe, but obviously not very big.
You're saying American football in
Amer-
Ireland, is it?
yeah.
It's quite small there. It's probably, yeah, maybe it's a bit like the way rugby is in America.
Yeah. Yeah,
You
makes
know what I
sense.
mean? But actually, I don't know if you know, you might have noticed, but the New Orleans, the Saints, they just signed a kicker from Ireland. So what you have in Ireland is it's actually a friend. I played with him on the Eagles, Tig Leader. Funny story, he was just after COVID, or once COVID kicked in, he was playing with the New England Free Jacks. COVID comes along and there's no more games. He's out in the park kicking a rugby ball, and somebody comes up and goes, "Hey, have you ever tried kicking a football?" And he's like, "No, I haven't." But they're like, "Oh man, you should try it," you know. So he's like, you know what, COVID's going on. There's like nothing to do. So he goes, gets a football and starts kicking a football. He's like, oh my god, man, you could like you have a hell of a boot, you know.
Yeah. There's
So
been
to
a few
cut a long story
guys.
shorter, he ends up in the CFL.
Yeah.
I think he said it was the Friday night or the Saturday night. He kicked the game-winning point. They win. He is like the legend. He's the hero. And then on the Monday, he got released. And ultimately, because he didn't have enough kind of film, like he didn't play, wasn't a kicker in college or anything like that. So because of that, he said he'd go back to Ireland and start this leader kicking academy. And from that, he's now recruiting players in Ireland that are brought up kicking, like whether it's a Gaelic football, which is a traditional sport in Ireland, or kicking a rugby ball, and trying to get them college scholarships in America. And so far, he has right now he's got there's two guys on scholarship now, and then the NFL started reaching out for trying to develop international players as crossover for kickers. And this is like in the space of 6 months, they found a guy, and now he's just signed with the Saints. I mean, like this is
That's
nuts, you know.
crazy. Yeah. Dude,
So
there's no end that scouts and people won't go to find talent. You know what I mean? It's a $1 million, $1 billion industry, right? They'll uncover, unturn, or turn over every stone they can, right? But
yeah.
that's pretty incredible in such a short amount of time that he's done that.
Oh well, it's yeah, and it's just I guess he's seen this kind of what is it, niche, or seen this market that there's a gap in the market. It's like, man, because in America there isn't that many sports that involve kicking the ball. Like soccer, yeah, you kick the ball, but it's a round ball, you know.
Hmm.
And in rugby, but even that, you have baseball, you have basketball, you have American football. Like there isn't that much kicking. So soccer's probably the only kicking kind of sport, and it
Yeah.
isn't that big, you know. But in Ireland, the main sport would be kind of Gaelic football, which is either which you have a ball, and kids are going around like they're almost like born with a ball in their hand, kind of thing. You know what I mean? And so they're just brought up kicking. So that transition over is, hopefully going to be something that we'll see a lot more players coming from Ireland and stuff, because it's what a great opportunity for these guys.
Yeah, and I have a guy here in my chat. The reason why I brought up the American football thing is, and I'll rant here a little bit because since I would say I have a bigger American football background and played rugby, I'll give my 2 cents on this. But he said, did you speak about any differences between American football and rugby? Uh, and oddly enough, playing rugby actually turned me off of football, very much so, like by a lot. And one of the things I really loved about rugby, right, is it truly is organized chaos. There's a lot of rules people don't get, like you can't shoulder barge, you can't, trucks, you can't dump truck somebody, like you can't lift their feet up and throw them down. You have to wrap up when you tackle. There's all these kind of little things. You can't blast people from the side coming in at the gate, like that kind of
Yep.
stuff, right? There's actually a lot of control to the chaos if you don't know what's going on as you're just looking at it. And it just kind of turned me off of football because I see these guys, they get beat on a route, and instead of trying to break up the ball, they're just almost purposely letting the guy get open. Sometimes it feels like, and then they're just getting a 10-yard head start and just launching themselves at someone. And it's like, I understand football's physical, and it is what it is, right? It's a brutal sport. It's really tough, and that example I brought up. But I feel like there's a lot more technical skill in rugby, especially at like skill positions overall. Uh, in terms of like, you have to have position first and maintain position and beat the man to the position. I feel like football is just so much about physicality that the position game gets lost a little bit. And there's other things like keeping it in bounds. Ball control is a big thing in rugby that I like. That's a lot like basketball, right? You're trying to have as much time with the ball as possible and as little time to the other team. I started to not like the fact that you could just run out of bounds and keep the ball. That kind of stuff. Like, it kind of got my head turning. It honestly kind of turned me off from football a little bit. But I don't know. Maybe you have any thoughts about the difference. I know you maybe didn't play American football like I
No, I
did
never
growing
did.
up,
Yeah.
but maybe like some differences you see, or any thoughts on the whole rugby football comparison.
Right. Well, I think so I mean, you kind of touched off of, like, I think position specific like skills in football are like there's no comparison. I mean, like, these guys are like they're just incredible at whatever, but they're at their job, but their job is kind of, this is no
No, yeah,
disrespect,
you're right. They have a
like,
specific duty. Yeah,
this is their specific job and they absolutely nail it. But rugby, it's like, and then so you might be on offense or you're on defense, but that's your job, and once and that's it. Again, I'm not trying to
no, you're
rub
right.
any feathers anywhere, but
Yeah,
with rugby, it's, this is your job, but you also got to do everything else. So there's no, like, offense and defense. You play offense and you play defense. So from that aspect, it's that to me is probably the biggest difference.
yeah. And you wanted to say, is rugby tougher? I would say it's a little more of like a grind compared to explosive hits. So, like, I don't know. I mean, there's big hits in both, and football's obviously very grinding too. Uh,
Well, I think, I mean, the biggest difference is probably going to be what a football game goes on for, what, 4 hours. Is that fair to say?
yeah, with commercials and stuff. At a high school game, right? It wouldn't be. It'd probably be two,
Yeah.
2.5 or
But
something.
it's very much start stop. But rugby, it's like it's 80 minutes, and it might go to 85 minutes because of injury time, or injuries like that. So it's, I would say that the action is more kind of condensed. So ultimately, I mean, like, you have these big, was it, defensive ends and stuff there that are absolute, monsters. These are 300 plus pounds, right? I
Yeah.
don't forget the position correct, but it's like, uh, you know, yeah, you can bring them to rugby, but will they have that engine? Can they carry that weight around for 60 minutes?
Yeah, football.
Pro-
Yeah, talking about NFL, you're talking about highly specialized athletes who just need to be good for 5 seconds, right? I think that's kind of what you're
yeah,
saying. In rugby, you got to be good for 80 minutes, and you got to
yeah,
be able to go sideline to sideline, up and down the field.
yeah. But then can you take a rugby player and toss him to the NFL? Like, well, no.
Maybe,
There's a couple of instances. I mean, you
yeah,
see, there's a couple of guys that have signed for these specific kind of places, but ultimately the answer is no. It's like, I haven't a clue what to do,
yeah.
and
I definitely agree with that. And I just had it on the tip of my tongue. He also asked though, like, rugby doesn't wear much protection. Like, no, you don't. You don't. Maybe at
yeah,
most you have a little cushion cap or a little cap or something. That's it's just like a little
yeah,
inch
piece
of,
of
of
padding.
padding,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
You
I'd say
might wear
ultimately,
something like that, but for the
yeah.
most part, no, you don't wear.
Yeah, I'd say a mouthpiece is about it. So now in the MLR, and so I'd say an interesting thing is what you might come across is that they've there's less concussions. I mean, I'm not. This is no scientific whatever statement, but it's there's less concussions in rugby than there is
Oh yeah,
football.
100%. Yeah,
Yeah, and I think it's more so because the way we tackle. You're talking about, you got this guy that's just launching his whatever 300 pounds of just big man right at this guy and using his head as the point of the arrow. While rugby, we're kind of almost taught to tackle with our shoulders. So it's
yeah,
um yeah,
yeah. And it was funny. I learned so much more about tackling playing rugby than I ever did playing football for 3, 4 years in junior high and high school and stuff.
yeah. And that's actually, he's a former professional rugby player. He used to play for Ireland, and that's he's moved to Dallas, and that's what he's doing. He's teaching guys in Dallas how to tackle, like how to rugby tackle, and then
Yeah.
that helps them. That then they go on to the I'm not saying they go on to the NFL, but it helps them with their with their football skill or tackling.
There was also a guy, he played defensive back, safety or something for Kansas City. I remember his last name was Sorensen. I do not know if he played rugby, but I know he was from Denmark. I'm not sure if he had a rugby background. I'm going to assume he did, right? But I remember Sorensen was a pretty good defensive back for Kansas City not too long ago. I think he might have played rugby.
I mean, ultimately, what you need is you need to get my teammate on the pod. You need to get Paul Asike. So he played for the Chicago Bears. He's a fullback for the Chicago Bears, and now he plays center in rugby. So he's been with us. Yeah, he was Warrior. So it's the Utah Warriors. So he's Warrior number one. So he is. Yeah, he is he's the king around here.
Yeah, it makes sense.
Yeah.
What I was going to say, though, we were talking about the athlete and the game comparison. I actually, as a basketball player, I find the pace of rugby very similar to basketball, right? It doesn't stop. It's offense, defense. You got to be able to play all over the floor. And one thing in lateral movement, right, is really big in basketball and rugby, maybe more so than in football. But one thing I found really interesting, right, is one of the comparisons I love about rugby and basketball is like you were kind of saying you might have to do anything. At any point in basketball, a center, a big guy, might find himself out on the wing having to guard a point guard, right? Like totally on an island in unfamiliar territory. And there might be times when a small guy gets posted up against a bigger guy and he's helpless, right? Rugby's very much like that too. There are times in the game where it can get so discombobulated at times where you'll have little guys having to get in the pack and like having to bang with big guys for a little
Yeah,
bit. And you might have big guys all of a sudden find themselves out on the wing just totally looking like they don't belong and they're having to stay in front of these little guys. And that is one thing I did love is that you do have to be well rounded, right? You have to have stamina and be strong. You have to be able to play fast and play big. You have to be
yeah,
able to play sideline to sideline, right? That's one of the things I found. Honestly, basketball and rugby have a lot of the physicality is totally different, obviously,
yeah,
but the pace and like the style of the game and the responsibilities, I feel are very similar.
yeah. I think one thing that I probably forgot to mention about rugby too is that, like, what's so strange at rugby is there's a place for everybody. Like, whether you're slightly overweight, bigger fella, or you're a smaller fella, like, or boy or girl, like there is a place for everybody on the rugby team, which makes for an interesting time. Do you know what I
Yeah,
mean? It's which is kind of different because a lot of sports, it's like, well, unless you're 6'4" or above, you're not playing. You know what I mean?
right. And the same guy, his name's Tim Nick. He said, "Are there slim rugby players?" Which we were just talking about. And yeah, the guys on what you would call traditional rugby has 15 guys, right? You have 8 that are called the pack, big guys. You have
Yeah,
your scrum half, who is your 9. He's kind of like your point guard if you want to think about him like that. His job is to stay clean, make good passes, call out the plays, that kind of stuff. He's kind of your general in a way. And then you have kind of 10 through 15, and those are like your it's called the backs. They're a little bit of your more agile, faster guys, a little bit better in the open field kind of thing. So yeah, your number 15 guy can be a little guy, but he'll outrun you all day, right? So
exactly. Yeah,
like he was saying, there's places for big guys who maybe can't move too well, but they can't be moved either, and there's places for little guys who can't move anyone, but they can't be caught, right? So
exactly. So I'd say so 1 through 8 of the forwards, and then 9 through 15 of the backs. And it's like for me, it's like kind of I want to. If I get the ball, I want to run over you. But if they get the ball, the backs, if they get the ball, they want to run around you.
yeah,
So that's kind of the beauty. I'm trying to run over you, they're trying to run around you, and ultimately you don't want to get caught in no man's land where you're kind of stuck in between.
yeah, definitely, yeah, man, yeah. Rugby's just. I've also said it's such a complete sport, which kind of what we've been saying, right? It's such a complete sport. Like it's really hard to just be really bad at a couple things. You'll get exposed, right? You have to at least be a little good at everything to kind of keep your head in the game and know what you're doing and be productive for your team.
Yeah. I mean, but again, it's like you want to try and find your what's the word I'm looking for here, but if you can find whatever that superpower is, superpower is probably the,
Like a
the wrong word, but
specialist.
specialty. So whether if it's scrummaging, you might be good at scrummaging, but you're not good at passing the ball. Well, then
Don't pass.
don't pass. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, just stick to your
Which
scrums.
is why I never passed, because I was never
Yeah.
that good at it.
Or you might be good at passing one way, not the other. Whatever it might be, but but ultimately, yeah, it's like and that's why sometimes you might be good passing, but you're fast. Well, then we might just kind of, at least in Division 3, we'll put you on the wing. So it's like, here, we'll give you the ball. Now just do something with it, but just don't pass.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I mean, I think this has been a good interview. I mean, I know you're busy. I don't want to take up all your time. I mean, we can do this again, or we can talk all day, or maybe maybe when something big happens in the rugby world, we can talk about it or whatever. You're obviously welcome to come back anytime you want. But
Yeah, absolutely. And if any of your boys, if they've any questions, I guess you can fire them at me next time, or something like that. And
yeah, 100%, man. Yeah, I definitely enjoyed it. Do you have like any parting words? I mean, I know I asked you earlier, but do you have any final words or anything?
No,
I have one
I've got
quote.
inspiration like that. I don't have anything. It's like go support your local rugby team. There you go.
Yeah,
That's all I got.
100%. Yeah, definitely go find your local rugby team and watch them. 100%. Yeah. And you might make some friends in the process, right? So I did want to say at least one quote, right? And I thought it perfectly summed up this kind of aspect we're talking about of like on and off the field with rugby. And I know you know the quote. It's soccer is a gentleman's game played by hooligans, and rugby is a hooligan's game played by gentlemen. And I definitely just wanted to get that quote out there before we close, because like it's very true. Like rugby is just such a hooligan sport on the field, and like you said, as soon as the game's over, it's like shake hands, let's go have a beer, tell me about your kids, or whatever, right? So I definitely wanted to at least get that quote in before we left.
Yeah, one second. I want to show you this real quick because it's funny you say that, right? But this is on our boy's hat.
Yeah.
There you go.
That's their hat. Hooligans game played by gentlemen. There you go. Yeah.
There you go. That's Nutsize Company.
Nice. I love it. I'm gonna have to get one.
Yeah. Here's the other one.
I like
is it
that.
Backwards for you?
Huh?
Is it backwards? Does it come up backwards?
No. Yeah. It was right. That's cool. I have to check it out. I'll have you send that to me whenever, or maybe I could just message them, I guess. But
yeah, you could probably do another podcast on the nicknames of rugby players, but that'll be for some other day. Yeah.
That's right. Yeah. Tim.
What was your nickname?
Huh?
What was your nickname?
I don't know if it's YouTube appropriate. You remember Jimmy called me BBC for some reason, and I could never find out why. Whatever. Do you remember that? I could never find.
That was not your nickname. That was not your nickname.
Jimmy used to call me that all the time, and I don't know why. I could never get him to explain why, and I think he just thought it was funny.
There's no way that's your nickname. I thought it was something else. But anyway, you should get Jimmy on, because I'm sure he's got a few stories of some rugby tales,
Oh, I bet Jimmy. Yeah, Jimmy, former Marine. Yeah, he was definitely probably the crazier of the three of us, for sure. Yeah, but yeah, I mean, I appreciate you coming on, man. We can kind of end it here. I think it's been great, and I really appreciate you coming on. I really do appreciate it. It means a lot.
No worries, Nick. Listen, happy to catch up, and obviously it's been a long time since the last one I seen you in Houston. It's been, I don't know how long since I've seen you before that, so it's always great to.
It's been a while, and I'm definitely gonna go to your next Eagles game, 100%.
All right, yeah. Well, so I believe there's two games coming up. We're playing this year. We're playing Romania in DC and Scotland in Chicago. Or did I get that backwards? Sorry, did I get that backwards? I'm not too sure. I have it here, but so there's two home games this year. Maybe three actually. We're gonna play Canada too. But anyway,
definitely, man.
See them. Yeah.
All right, man. Have a good one. I appreciate it.
No worries, Nick. Take care.